This story is something that I think about from time to time, and it creeps me out. Almost 3 years ago, I was 17 years old. At this point, I was accustomed to being in horrible situations, as all I had was my mother, and she could not hold down a job for long because she had her own issues to tackle, and so as I grew up, we stayed in and out of roommates' houses. We never really had our own place to stay except twice, but that didn't last long either, and we would be forced into a new environment with the snap of a finger. So when I was 17, we are led into a situation where we are going to be homeless again, and I was used to it at this point, as I had slept in the street more than I'd like. The day comes when we have to leave our roommate's house, and my mom is able to stay at her boyfriend's trailer. I had nowhere to go, as I had no friends at this point, as I halted my friendships, because they were bad for my health and mental state and overall were toxic. My mom offered me to go with her, but I didn't want to, as I felt like getting between my mom and her boyfriend was kind of weird, plus I'm used to the street, and I didn't think it was as bad as it was at the time. So here we are, I get dropped off at a McDonald's, and I eat some burgers, before I go off into the streets once more. Eventually, the sun fled and darkness was all that remained, and so I looked for a place to sleep for the night. I went into many places that night trying to sleep, but none of them were working, because it was either too hot, or the lights were too bright, or the mosquitoes were biting me. That's when I remember a house that I used to go into to chill in. This house was under construction and nearly finished, so the doors all shut and the windows were all settled so there were no mosquitoes. I go through the back like always, and I make my way upstairs. Eventually, I settle in the bathroom because there is less debris on the floor. So I lay there and I try to sleep. Eventually, I hear some sounds downstairs, but I didn't think anything of it. I figured it was the door that I came through swinging open and close or something. Eventually, after laying there for maybe an hour, I open up my phone and I look at old photos of my life, thinking about how messed up it was that I got to this point, and how I lost everything. The noises were still happening this entire time, but I paid no mind to it. Eventually, for whatever reason, I get up and I go to sit down on the back porch, because I just couldn't sleep. I make my way downstairs, and out the back door, to the porch. I am messing around on my phone for maybe 5 minutes when it happens. I see movement to my left from the back door I just exited from. I glance over and time itself freezes. At first, I think that it's an illusion, but I was in fact wrong. I see a man shrouded in darkness, peering past the wall inside to gaze at me. His lower half of his figure was behind the wall entirely, and I could not see anything but his upper body. The rest of his body has leaning to the left, peeking behind this wall, almost like the man was trying not to let me see his full body, as it would make his presence known. The man was a pure black silhouette, and I could not make out any features. After noticing him, I just sat there and stared at him for what seemed like forever, but was probably a minute or two. I expected him to come outside and talk to me, because I normally talked to a lot of homeless people, and I thought the man was just homeless. He didn't come outside though. He had not moved at all actually. He was as still as a statue, quiet as a mouse. Maybe if I had not noticed him he would have stared at me the entire time. I eventually, after staring at him, got up and got my bicycle and made my way out of the property. As I am walking out of the backyard, I peer into the window that is next to the door I saw the man in. The moonlight revealed the man was still there, only now he was watching me walk out of the property. I could tell, because the moonlight revealed the top of the man's head, and I saw his left eye gazing at me. He was a white male, who was very tall, and had a jacket of some kind on. I could not make out many details, because he was still cloaked in darkness. After seeing this, I just moved a little faster out of there. I got to the front of the house on the street, and I looked inside to see if I could see him again. I could not. I got on my bicycle and waved goodbye to the house, because I figured the man was still watching me. Then I drove away. For the rest of the night I could not sleep. I tried 2 different spots, but both were no luck. This is where the story ends. I know I didn't have a crazy chase or fight to the death or anything, but this was real life, and it's not the same as the movies or books. I don't know what the man was doing in there. I assume he was trying to sleep, like I was, but the way he was staring on me was very unnerving. It makes me wonder how long the man was in the house for, and what would have happened if I actually fell asleep in the house. Would he have stared at me while I was asleep, completely blinded to his presence? Or did he have other intentions? I will never know, but now, I don't go into houses like that anymore at all after this experience. When I was in high school, my friend Claire came to sleep over. We made some plans to sneak out and hang out with some guys, and then one of them would drive us home. We go out to our friend's apartment, have some fun, and around midnight, we decide it's time for us to head back. But when we ask to be taken back, everyone says no, despite previously agreeing to bring us back. Everyone said they were too drunk or too high, so we eventually decide to just start walking back, and we would make some phone calls to see if anyone could pick us up and bring us the rest of the way back. My house was a good 20 minutes away by car on the highway, so there was no way we were walking all the way back. The apartment was towards the back of the complex, so we start making our way to the entrance. We don't even get halfway there, before a car slowly starts rolling up behind us. I was 15 or 16 at the time, and very naive to the ways of the world, so I wasn't too concerned, but Claire was a little smarter than me on this night. She tells me to start walking faster. So we start walking faster. The car also picks up their pace behind us. Again, she tells me to walk faster. So we start moving as fast as we can, and that's when the car pulled slightly in front of us, and 2 of the passenger doors open, and 2 men get out. Realizing there's no walking faster to get out of this situation, she instructs me to run now, so she takes off running, and I follow her. She runs towards a group of parked cars and jumps behind a pickup truck, and for a minute we hope and pray that we weren't spotted. This is where details get a little fuzzy. One of them must have gotten back in the car at some point, as there's only one of them following us behind the truck. We hear a set of footsteps quickly approaching, and she quietly indicates that we're now going into stealth mode. This man is on the other side of the truck that we're hiding behind. He's circling the truck looking for us, and we're slowly and quietly circling it on the opposite side to avoid being spotted. It felt like a scene from a movie or video game. We somehow managed to do 2 or 3 circles around the vehicle without being detected, and by the grace of the gods, he gives up and decides to go back to the car with his friends. This is our one shot to get away. She tells me to run again, so we run for what felt like an eternity, but in reality was probably only 15 to 20 seconds. We find the pool house area and find a spot to hide. We were hidden behind some fences and bushes, and were anxiously waiting to see if they discover us. Their car pulls around to the pool house, and we're biting our nails, hoping they don't stop and get out. The car slowly drives away, and we realize we haven't been spotted. We were safe for now, but the car circled around the apartment complex for hours and hours and hours. They weren't giving up on looking for us. We were safe for the time being, but now we needed to find a way out of there. It was the middle of winter, and of course we were dressed to impress the guys we went to hang out with, so short shorts and revealing tops. We were freezing. We found a dirty, disgusting Captain America blanket that we huddled up under while making phone calls to find someone to pick us up. We tried contacting the guys at the apartment, but no one answered our calls. None of our friends answered our calls. We felt completely alone and hopeless. But around 5 a.m. someone finally answered and said they would pick us up. The best news I had ever heard in my life. Our friend gets to the apartment complex, but can't find the pool house. The group of men is still constantly circling around, so there's no way we're coming out of hiding. We managed to figure out where our friend is at with a little detective work, figuring out what building they're facing, what's in front of them, are there dumpsters nearby, etc., etc. We figure out where they're at, so we make a run for it. We spot their car and hop in as fast as we can. Geo go go, we tell them, and our friend speeds off towards the entrance. We pass the group of men on the way out, and that was the last we saw of them. We made it back around 6 a.m., just in time to sneak back in, without my parents ever knowing we even left. If Claire hadn't been with me that night, I definitely would have been abducted, raped, and possibly killed. So thankful for Claire and our friend that picked us up. On a happier note, I'm now very diligent and aware of my surroundings, and we washed the dirty Captain America blanket and shared custody of it for years after this encounter. So to the men who terrorized me and my friend in a shitty apartment complex, let's not meet again. My parents had purchased a condo about 10 minutes from their home around the time my older brother was born, with the intention that my siblings and I have the option of renting it when we would come of age. I moved in alongside my brother a few weeks after my 18th birthday, exhilarated by the freedom from our childhood home, which had become laden with traumatic memories over the years. The move took 2 or 3 days, and we had a U-Haul coming in and out of the driveway during that time. My first day of college occurred a few days later. I had a full schedule 3 days a week, which I would later regret, with my last class getting out at 6 p.m. The city I live in is notorious for heavy traffic, and I would not get home until roughly an hour and a half later, despite the university being less than 15 miles away. The sun was mostly down by the time I turned into my street, and there were a few people, some accompanied and one alone, taking their evening strolls. There was nothing remarkable about it. The driveway was occupied, so I parked on the street and made my way home. The following day, I got off my closing shift at 9 p.m. It was dark by the time I got home, and there was a man walking on the strip of sidewalk that faces the condo. I would not have noticed that he was the lone man from the evening before, if it was not for him wearing the same outfit, a bright yellow hoodie, black nylon track pants with white pinstripes, gray Nike trainers, and a tan baseball cap. As I got out of my car, we shared a quick glance and continued on our ways. 2 days later, I got off my closing shift and picked my, now ex-boyfriend up for a date. We went back to the condo so that I could change, and in the dark, I saw the man again, wearing the same outfit and on the same strip of sidewalk. It's him again. I sounded more surprised than sussed out, and my boyfriend was confused. I explained that I had been seeing him walking around and that he was always wearing the same thing. We got out of the car and stared at him, our bodies turned toward him. He ducked behind a car. Now properly sussed out, we got back in my car and watched him get into his and drive away with his lights off. It was too dark and he was too far away for us to catch a license plate. At this point, I was not sure if this man even lived in the neighborhood. We went about our night, and I dropped my boyfriend back off at his parents' house. He told me to call him and/or the police if I saw the man again, and I agreed. I got home around midnight. The man was a street away from his usual spot, crouching below a tree and hugging his knees under his chin. I drove past him and noticed a different man in a blue flannel and jeans approaching a street light. He got under the illuminating glow and pulled his phone out, attempting to make a call. I was unsure if the two men had any association with each other until I looked back over at the yellow hoodie man. He was no longer under the tree. He was also under a street light, a few meters away from the tree. His back was turned to me, but it appeared as though he was taking a call. As I looked back and forth between the two men, it became pretty obvious that they were communicating with each other. I drove away and called the police. They told me to stay where I was or go to another safe location and that they would contact me when the matter was taken care of. I dozed off and was awoken maybe an hour later by the promised phone call. I was told that neither of the two men were residents of the area, and that they were simply told not to come back on reports of suspicious activity. After being advised to call again if they came back, I went home. I was tired enough that I had no trouble sleeping for a little while. Around 4 a.m. I was sharply roused by the metal screen door rattling against its frame. The force slowly grew in intensity, and eventually, the walls and floor were quaking. I peeked through the blinds of my second-story window, which overlooks the front door, and of course, saw the man in the yellow hoodie, aggressively attempting to open the screen door. I was shaking in my boots on my mattress, which was still on the floor as I had not yet purchased a bed frame. I received a call from my equally bewildered brother, who was in his room. I told him to call my dad while I called the police. It has now been almost 4 years, and I can assure you all that my street smarts have markedly improved.